But the ultimate is how you are behaving at work. Can you be who you are, or are you not, for example, talking about your partner because for fear of being judged, or talking about your religious festival for fear of being judged, or or talking about the fact that you are actually very stressed and not mentioning it to anybody because your fear of being judged. So it's really how you can behave and feel good at work. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. You mentioned empathy a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
And how important do you feel that is for leaders?
Huge, absolutely fundamental. There've been a lot of surveys done that show that those companies that have empathetic cultures and empathetic leaders are constantly outperforming those companies that don't. And the same in terms of building trust and having, good leadership. Empathy is really important. And empathy also is a great way to get accountability as well. It's not always easy to get accountability.
In what way? In what way?
In what way? Well, if you just say do this, or if you don't do this, then there'll be trouble, or I expect you to deliver this now, tomorrow, whatever. People might not always react to that in the right way. They might not necessarily want to do that. They might not feel motivated to do that. But if you approach it from an empathetic perspective, bosses who are empathetic, you find, and research shows this, that they will automatically get more accountability. So they're not independent of each other. They can actually work very well together. So an empathy is just enormous, because when you're empathetic, then you're building trust. The other person feels that you care. The other person feels that you're interested in them. And again, it doesn't mean that you agree with them. It's not about being kind or agreeing. It's about showing that you get where they are. And I think that's really important.
And how is that related, or is it the same as emotional intelligence? Where is the...
It's part of emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence is quite a wide spectrum of things, ranging from how you manage your own emotions to how you work with others. And that's, of course, empathy is in there, to impulse control, to flexibility. There's so many different elements of emotional intelligence, and empathy is one of the cornerstones of emotional intelligence. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. And are you finding now, because I know you do a lot of work on EQ.
Yes.
And are you finding now some of the best leaders are actually some of the most empathetic? Because again, if you kind of look at this caricature leader, they've never been, maybe they always were, but they've never been portrayed as empathetic.
No.
Historically.
I think that empathy. So I think the best leaders are those who have a good balance of empathy and accountability, as well as all the other things that you need to be a leader. But I think that empathy certainly builds trust. It certainly builds an environment within which people will perform for you better. I think it's absolutely key. I think that a lot of people overestimate how empathetic they are. There have been quite a few studies done where people
overestimate.
Yeah, they overestimate. Often I think, are you empathetic? Oh, yes. But actually, surveys show, and there's one survey I talk about in my book where, they asked the leaders of an organization if they were empathetic. I think 95% of them said they were empathetic. And then they surveyed the rest of the organization. There was, quite a gap. I think it was something like 70% or something. There's a 25% gap. So people overestimate it. And yeah, I mean, it's really very important. Also, talking just to add, even to widen the whole subject, what the younger generation now, the Gen Z want, and even up to a point the millennials also, is they want bosses that are empathetic. They're looking for that. So to attract and retain talent, it's an important aspect as well.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, for what I do as well, everyone.
Yeah.
Either we talked about it at the beginning, people leave bosses. People also follow people.
They do.
A lot, and often you say, "Oh, how did that move come about?" And oh, that's interesting. And so often it's like, "Oh, my old boss went, and they wanted to take me with them, and I got a call a year later, and they're like, come, and I love that boss."
Yeah.
So no, I completely agree. It's again, it just, for me, it's the human connection stuff. Like, people want to feel a connection and respected and valued and things like that.
You're right, and I think it's a shame that some leaders feel a bit worried about that, about the empathy bit. They think they're going to be soft, or they're going to be perceived as too kind. And because they don't understand what empathy is, I think that's a problem. So
people mistake it for weakness. Maybe it's not weakness; it's massive strength.
Exactly. Yeah.
I completely agree. I wanted to say one interesting thing as well. I think a lot of this stuff, when you have a wonderfully diverse team, loads of different opinions, different people from different backgrounds and stuff. Humans I always find it funny. Like a lot of humans find it very difficult to have a conversation with people about something they disagree with without it turning into an argument.
Mm-hmm.
And if you agree with that, I'd
say they do.
Any kind of thoughts on how you can navigate some of these? So you're bringing your whole self to work. The environment's conducive to, the boss is awesome, super empathetic, encouraging people to have conversations and all of this.
Yeah.
And then you suddenly get all of these different. How can you kind of navigate that as an individual?
It's quite tricky, isn't it? I mean, I think you're kind of talking about some sort of conflict, aren't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, this happens a lot because conflict is normal at work. I mean, I would say it's a healthy thing. I think the way to navigate it is to navigate it with emotional intelligence. So it's really important for each party to first assess their own emotions. So how are you feeling about this, right? What's going on with you? So before you have, if you're going to have a conversation, you can prepare for that conversation. You can prepare for a conversation that's going to happen. If you're feeling upset or frustrated or sad or whatever, analyze and think about what's going on for you. And then also at the same time, think about how the other person might be feeling. So again, you're using this empathy to put yourself in the shoes of the other person. And then when you approach a conversation like that, if you approach it from a place of, oh my God, this is going to be awful, or it's going to be tense again, or whatever, you've already lost. You've lost already. So you have to say, this is a conversation. We don't really agree at the moment, but there's an opportunity here for us to work together and to try and listen to each other's perspectives. And maybe we're not going to agree yet, but maybe it's one conversation on the step to agreeing, right? Yeah. So take it like that, not as a battle, but just like this is just an important element. And then, of course, if you're in the moment when you're having that conversation, again, emotions play a big role. So you have to monitor how you are, how you're feeling, and you need to be aware of what's going on. And if you feel that your emotions are rising, then you need to be able to stop. You need to be able to pause, have a break. So these are really managing yourself. And then showing empathy to the other person in the sense of listening to them, listening to their point of view, showing that you're listening. So again, this is all about listening and how you listen. And making sure that everybody can talk and express themselves, but also realizing that several conversations might be needed. You're not going to necessarily sort things out immediately, but there's quite a lot of emotional work to be done.
Yeah, loads. It's such a big thing because you look at, if you just kind of look at the macro, you've got social media where some social media platforms, maybe Twitter's probably a good example, where just there's a lot of venom and just very polarized views and stuff. LinkedIn's a bit different because it's professional, so it's a lot. But if you look at the conversations on LinkedIn, more thoughtful, measured. People tend to
it's more
go
measured,
too extreme. It's because it's your thing. So it's funny because on the one hand, forgetting LinkedIn and stuff, but you've got social media platforms and the media and politics and things like that where it gets very aggressive. Then you come into a work environment where you can't behave like that.
That's right.
Like I think if you behave like that, to your point, people want a human connection. They want to work with good folks, and you got to behave in a more say balanced or more appropriate way.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of those conflictual situations come from a place of fear. I think we're often afraid when we don't understand people or we're not comfortable with people. There's often we come from a place of fear. There's something that's worrying us. And so it's addressing that as well. And that can be addressed by open talk conversations, by sharing, by being curious about each other and listening to each other. You can really get rid of a lot of that.
Yeah. And that's the whole beauty of having such a diverse workforce, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you want to work in a place where you've got all these different perspectives and views, and so interesting. And I completely agree. Like come from a place of curiosity, like seek to understand. Listen, ask questions, listen.
Of course. Yeah.
I mean, It's powerful.
Yeah, except it's not really done enough yet.
It's not done enough. But look, like,
Yeah.
it's also a great way to build a relationship with someone, because people like people who listen to them.
Exactly.
And you take a real interest. And I bet you find that you have way more in common, like way more in common than you think.
Absolutely. And also we come to this golden word that I keep hearing all the time, which is time. Everybody's got deadlines, everybody's got to deliver. If people are chasing their tails all the time, and I haven't got time for this nicey talky type stuff. But actually it's time well invested, and it should be a discipline. There should be moments set aside for this, because it will help in the delivery. So it's key, in my opinion.
Come on, everyone's got 24 hours in a day. It's the one equitable thing on this planet. You just have to decide how you spend it. And investing, I mean, come on, it can be 5 or 10 minutes. I mean, it can be half an hour.
Absolutely.
You've got to spend time with people to build a relationship with someone, right?
Exactly.
You can't just do it on Teams chat or Google chat or something.
Exactly. So there's work to be done there. And one of the things that we do at HumanForce is that we work with leaders to train them to have difficult conversations, because a lot of leaders will avoid it. It's the sort of thing they don't like to do, because either they've done it badly in the past, or it hasn't worked out in the past, or they're just worried to upset people. But it's actually very important. The number of difficult conversations you have to have at work it happens a lot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's cool. So, I mean, even with this virtual world, I mean, we have like a range, right? Some people are in the office, some people are mixed. Yeah, I think plucking up the courage to do it face to face is good. But I mean, again, even video is I think good if people are different countries and stuff.
Yeah, it can be done. It's just a skill. It's something you have to learn and practice, and for some it comes easier than others, obviously.